wake up, welcome to Shy Society. I wake up in the morning and the first thing that I see is a bunch of cranky people on a full bus with no seats, repeatedly undermining what's in common misery. Strangers remain blinded to existence and their history. What's the recipe? Well, taxes and a slave wage, harassment from the debt they face. Family happenings may take place, wait, negate the hate. Defend you'll never ever hurt brothers and sisters. Not a damn thing from them you have learned. The pages turn, the future replicates the past. A building burns, fire revenge is pretty fast. War dance, it's a ritual in society. Live in shy land, this is what I describe to be childish, helpless, ignorant society. You will always be a part of me. Childish, helpless, ignorant society. Always be a part of me. Childish, helpless, ignorant society. You will always be a part of me. Childish, helpless, ignorant society. You will always be a part of me. Working one late afternoon, my head gets fatter with thoughts of you, along with matters when bills are due. Does it even matter how many pills I use? Refuse to deal with psych treatment. I like to think I'm quite different. Enough with all that love you're giving. When you turn your back, it's a stab I'm giving. Wishing that our hearts would not crack. What little world you think you had? See, good and all is really bad. Mr. Mad, what example you have had? Harass a man for skin color. Hopes and women don't put me under. Stereotype will make you wonder. Racially say he'll steal from another. I went about late at night. I have to face the shot. Blacks, Asians, and whites. And yup, I'm the Mexican. Oh, and the Muslim guys who said that it's in them kind. The shy response hence is I'm a southern border type. Troops defend the shy. Me, enemy contact, they bomb back. Two sides, a weapons contract. Whose arms not strapped? Speaking of faith to get in.
Alright everyone, welcome back to the Existentialists. I am Tony B. Make sure that everything is running smooth. If you're out there, thank you for viewing. We greatly appreciate your viewership. This is the Existentialists. We want to engage in conversation on the political arena, any social factors that exist that is causing the cultural shifts of our time. We really want to engage in philosophical discussions, average discussions on people's thoughts. I'm here to engage, and today I'm covering voter fraud, at least very briefly. There have been allegations of voter fraud. Now, my title might be a little bit misleading. I can recognize that fraudulent behavior is conducted during election times. I'm not above beyond bipartisanship. I could be there and admit that something looks fishy. The issue that might be occurring in this claim for election fraud that's being swept across the board as saying that Trump won by a landslide. He should have won the popular vote. The Democrats are cheaters. You know, Democrats are cheaters and liars, but that doesn't mean Republicans aren't cheaters and liars. So that's what I'm very clear with. I don't trust establishment politics or establishment machines to be fully honest. However, when it comes to conspiracies can be real. I believe people conspire. And it's quite possible that President Donald Trump conspired. His administration conspired with Wall Street bankers and people in the stock market about COVID-19 being a real threat. That's possible. That's one conspiracy that I'll buy into. Now, do I believe that the Democrats operated a smooth machine, getting in thousands of people across the country, electioneers, election judges, poll watchers, anyone that was part of the election process? The United States Postal Service? Was there a grand scheme, a conspiracy to rig the election in favor of Joe Biden? I don't think there was a grand scheme. Were there individual actors that quite possibly tried to favor Donald Trump? I mean, they tried to favor Joe Biden. Yeah, maybe. I mean, you could think about Lindsey Graham's race. This is on the opposite end. It's quite possible, and I'm making an accusation without any evidence. And this is how easy it is to really follow a conspiracy. Lindsey Graham was running in South Carolina to keep his seat in the Senate, the U.S. Senate, and he won. He kicked butt. He more than won. This dude dominated. Lindsey Graham, a Republican, was losing in the polls. The polls were prior to election, so they were counting for people who were against Lindsey Graham. Yes, polls have their errors, but the polls pointed towards his opponent. Maybe it's possible that Lindsey Graham had help of the Republican Party and conspired with everyone in that state to quite possibly rig the election. See, this is how easy it is to make up a conspiracy. But I am not here to discredit those who have claims of voter fraud of the likes. So I'm going to show you some things. We'll run through it. I realize that running longer videos might not be up to one's appetite. So we have to try to engage in a shorter volume, and then when we engage in discussion, that's when we really can engage in the longer conversations. Thank you, Gerardo Nava. Shout out to Gerardo Nava. Thank you for your viewership. We greatly appreciate you. All right, let's get into the funny business. I am actually, I'm convinced. I was convinced, I'll admit, that Donald Trump was going to gain the presidency again. And even though after election night, Joe Biden started gaining, and this is when people start coming with the conspiracies. They forgot about the Red Mirage theory. That was a Red Mirage by data analysis. Yes, of course, data analysis might lean towards Democrats, so it's still a conspiracy, and it's an excuse to mirror the idea that Trump's gonna win, and the Democrats already have an excuse why the next day Joe Biden wins. That's how the Red Mirage is being painted. But as I discussed last time, the Red Mirage was just this theory, just because mail-in ballots were being pushed by the Democrats. That the mail-in ballots, which would be counted within days after the election, they would lean more towards Joe Biden. And so thus the theory came true. Those mail-in ballots are leaning more towards Joe Biden. And President Donald Trump encouraged his voters to disregard the mail-in ballots because, well, there was provisional ballots that were absentee ballots were being sent to people's homes. And he had problems with that. But overall, his general language was the mail-in ballot system was pretty much corrupt. It was going to rig the election. And so therefore, many of Trump's supporters and Republicans didn't go down that road. So what did you expect? Of course the Democrats were going to dominate in the mail-in ballots. I expected nothing less. So that's how the Red Mirage played out. Mail-in ballots are now leaning towards Biden, and they're showing that he's winning. And the Trump campaign, the supporters, they're upset, and rightfully so. We need Americans on the right, on the left. We need integrity in our election system. I mean, that's not a hard thing to believe. If you lose the integrity, the confidence that a system can work, you are undermining the democratic system. The republic can fall. And that's how many Republican supporters, Trump supporters are feeling right now. They're feeling like the system is rigged against their interest. And that is a dangerous precedent because while many on the left are disregarding these concerns and they're calling them sore losers, just how the Democrats, back when they claimed Russiagate was real and the Russians interfered with the election and they caused Hillary Clinton to lose. But of course, there were other factors. The investigation, against Hillary's emails, third-party candidates. By this point, it looks like Biden's going to win. So I guess the same way that the Democrats blamed, or Hillary Clinton and the Democrats found reasons why Donald Trump won, the Republicans can find their reasons. They can easily say Kanye West is the reason why Trump lost. Kanye West, shame on you. Shame on you, third-party candidates. Joe Jurgensen, libertarian candidate. Shame on you, Hawkins of the Green Party. You helped Joe Biden win. So this is how ridiculous these claims can go. And the Trump supporters and the Republicans are going to find their excuses. So really dismissing them as sore losers, I'm not going to take that route. It's fun and it's humor, but it's dangerous because you need to gain the confidence of all American voters. At least most. You can't have 72 million Trump supporters, or even a big percentage of that, to be convinced that this election was rigged. It's dangerous for a democracy, dangerous for a republic. So with that being said, let's get into this voter fraud stuff, why don't we? And then once again, if you're watching, please like this video, share it, comment, engage with conversation. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. And once I invite people to come on, join in the show, so we can have a jolly good time. So let's see where we are with this. All right, I'm gonna pull up here we are. Let me pull up this screen right here. Yes, so Karl Rove, if you don't know, look up the name Karl Rove. He's a Republican operative, a very big name in the GOP, the Republican Party. Karl Rove, this guy. He acknowledges the presidential election won't be overturned. So while we can say that voter fraud is real, and it could have happened here, it could have happened there, while Trump is in court, while the Trump campaign and the Republicans are in court right now, do they have sufficient evidence to really make this claim? That's one, right? First, they need evidence. If they don't have the evidence, there's really no case. Oh, I did not do that. Let's go back. Okay. So, well, I guess the ads are just acting the way they want to act. My apologies. So first you need the evidence. I'm going to show you a little, well, let's just show you now. Here's this transcript. This was in Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, Trump lawyer to Pennsylvania judge. Nope, I've got no evidence of voter fraud. President Donald J. Trump has been aggressively pursuing voter fraud in courts, but in the Montgomery County, even his own lawyers admit there's no grand conspiracy afoot. I always like that word, afoot. Right, so there's nothing there. At least this was recent. These are the transcripts. And here goes the court. Here's the justice. Are you claiming that there is any fraud in connection with these 592 disputed ballots? And Mr. Goldstein, the lawyer, to my knowledge at present, no. Now, let's make sure. I say that voter fraud is real, and I say allegations should be taken seriously. 500, at least this is just one case in Pennsylvania. There's lots more coming out of Pennsylvania, how an appellate court already sided with Trump to disregard certain ballots. So there's this claim that Pennsylvania might swing back to Trump. Joe Biden still wins. Even, let's just say Pennsylvania goes to Trump, Joe Biden still wins if that's the only thing that happened. But there are several states, Wisconsin included. Arizona just got dismissed. I don't think Trump campaign is fighting in Arizona anymore. But everything should be taken seriously. Right now, this is 592 disputed ballots by the Trump campaign. So they're pretty much throwing mud at the wall and they're seeing what sticks. But they brought this case, and the judge asked, are you claiming there's any fraud in connection with these disputed ballots? And the lawyer of Trump says no. Okay, so what else does he say? Are you claiming that there is any undue or improper influence upon the elector with respect to these 592 ballots? To my knowledge at present, no. So he just keeps saying no. Wow. So what's the point, buddy? Claim of no evidence. And think about that number, 592 ballots. 592. And there's no. Imagine if they did find allegations to be allegations of fraud probable, and evidence suggested that that did happen. 592 ballots will not help Donald Trump in Pennsylvania. So this is the thing. While I take voter fraud seriously, the courts are going to look. It is going to be a major factor because if, as Trump being the victim of this case, he's pursuant to gain justice for his own behalf, what you got to really think about is it won't be enough to help him, because the court has to consider, if they rule in his favor, will it really favor his injury? Will it help cure his injury or whatnot? There's better legal terms to use, but this is already showing that Trump's going to cave. And he had a press conference today. I thought he was going to cave, but he didn't. Well, his Republican Party and some of his operatives, the Republican Party operatives, Karl Rove, one of the infamous leaders within the George W. Bush administration, he acknowledges that this is over. We don't want to see CNN video. No thanks. There you go. Karl Rove, the architect of President George W. Bush's gubernatorial and president campaigns, acknowledged Wednesday that 2020 presidential election will not be overturned, regardless of the flurry of lawsuits from Donald Trump's challenging the results. Ooh. Rove, whose sources said advised the White House and Trump campaign leading up to 2020, wrote in the Wall Street Journal op-ed that while the president is within his right to challenge the results, and I agree, his efforts are unlikely to move a single state from Mr. Biden's column, and certainly they're not enough to change the final outcome. Would you look at that? So, Karl Rove is saying it clear. It's unlikely, if any of these fraudulent claims prove to be true, President Donald Trump will not gain a state, nor will it ever be enough to change the final outcome. There's a Republican that's caving in. That's just one instance. I find this next one, very, very, very awesome. Because why are Republicans turning against Trump? This is notable to mention why Trump is the party right now. This is what's scary about the Republican Party. He's the most popular figure in the Republican Party. So with that being said, these GOP operatives, these Republican leaders, they're gambling here. They're taking a gamble. Maybe they're popular in their state, so that's a protection. But a lot of the GOP, a lot of the Republicans, they are siding with Trump because they know that they may face re-election in the future. Not senators for the most part, but they have to appease their constituencies. That's just how the game plays, and it's unfortunate, but that's Trump's party for now. Let's look at this one. Philadelphia's top GOP election official pushes back on voter fraud claims. Philadelphia. Ooh, look at that. This is Schmidt. A rhino, if you don't know, rhino is Republican in name only. Republican in name only. That means that they only wear the title Republican, but they're not really Republicans. Well, what's really a Republican? Well, anyone that falls in line with Trump. Because that's what Trump wants. He wants loyalists. He wants people that are going to follow him over the cliff of the mountain. Okay, Philadelphia's top election official pushed back on Trump's team's claim of voter fraud in his city. Totally untrue. On Wednesday, this is it. Al Schmidt, GOP election official, one of 3 city commissioners responsible for overseeing elections. Okay, this guy oversees the election, but apparently he's a rhino. He must be a Biden supporter. And hey, let's be frank. The Lincoln Project, look it up. The Lincoln Project was like this group of Republicans that did not want to follow the cult personality of the Republican Party. They didn't want to get behind Trump, so they backed Biden. This Lincoln Project, there's data out there suggesting they really didn't do much. to help Biden. So maybe Republicans voted for Joe Biden because Joe Biden is, well, I think he's going to be one of the most progressive presidents, not a progressive president, but one of the most. He's still a centrist for me. He's still an establishment, status quo elite. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. But there's Republicans that back Biden, definitely. So this guy could be one. Yeah, so there you go. You have another official. Campaign sued this week in a bid to block Pennsylvania officials from certifying the state's election results. Trump surrogates have accused Philadelphia officials of preventing Republican poll watchers from observing the vote count. When asked by Fox News if such accusations were true, Schmidt said, "Absolutely not. We've seen observers from the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, from the Trump campaign and from the Biden campaign, more than we've seen our own families, I assure you, over the last couple of weeks." So that's one of the claims in court. Republican poll watchers were prevented from observing the vote count. Now, there is some validity to that. Apparently, in some instances, in some counties, where the poll watchers went and they were kept distant. There was an accusation someone made that they said, imagine being in a football field and you're at the starting line and you have to watch all these votes from across the entire field. It wasn't an adequate way to monitor the vote count. And yeah, apparently that's not true. People were accommodated. There were Republicans and Democrats there, but people want to focus on the fact that not enough Trump supporters and Republicans were in the room to count, because Democrats cannot be trusted. Yes, he said 25 feet away from vote counts. That's what the campaign is saying. So they even asked Schmidt, was that true about 25 feet? Schmidt said it was a big operation inside the vote court counting room. We've arranged it in a way that observers have access to see what's going on. Parts of the official canvas, the parts that observers are permitted to really, keep an eye on, and all the rest. We have set it up completely in accordance with the law, and a federal judge agreed with us on that. So they already brought that, and the federal judge said, yeah, Pennsylvania's following the law. So if you don't like it, just let them make sure they're at least 6 feet, because that's social distancing stuff. So this is all very interesting that you have these battles in Pennsylvania, and Republicans, a Republican official in Pennsylvania is saying there was no voter fraud. Karl Rove said even if there was voter fraud, Trump is not going to regain the White House. It's a lost battle, my friend. This one's just for kicks and giggles. Apparently there was a Texas official, a lieutenant governor of Texas, that's him right there. He said he seeks a $1 million. Oh, he said a $1 million reward to anyone that can report a case of alleged voter fraud. And the Pennsylvania lieutenant governor responded to this man right here. So he shows, this one's funny. So this Pennsylvania Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman wants to take the Texas official up on his offer. So he says, "Hey, Governor Patrick, it's your counterpart in Pennsylvania. I'd like to collect your handsome reward for reporting voter fraud." Fetterman mentioned that a man in Luzerne, County, Pennsylvania, was arrested after allegedly asking for an absentee ballot for his dead mother so he could vote for Donald Trump. This was a 67-year-old man. He was apprehended last month on October 31st. And this demonstrates how the system worked in spotting and stopping alleged fraud. So the lieutenant governor of Pennsylvania is using this case, which in this case a voter for Trump tried to commit fraud for his dead mother. So that's one instance where, yeah, sometimes there are voters, individuals out there that are trying to get ballots or pass off ballots for a dead relative. It's scary, but it exists. In Pennsylvania, there were other. It wasn't just a Trump supporter, but there are instances where the data analysis. You could look at the state data analysis on voting. Apparently, there were a good number of people, maybe 2,000 voters that were over 99. Now, people who are older than 99 exist. But there was one instance, accordingly, there was someone who was 200 years old that voted in Pennsylvania. So these could be clerical errors. These could be system errors. But for Trump supporters and the conspiracy people, which these allegations might be true as fraudulent, but for the most part, if there was an error, that's a big time rig. The entire system is fake. It's phony. Yeah, but then, we see this Trump supporter doing the same thing. How do we know that Trump supporters across the United States? I can use this one example and say, because of this one example, the system was attempted to be rigged by Donald Trump in his campaign. And there's a big conspiracy afoot. There goes that word again. It's that easy. So that's why I don't fall into these narratives that there's this grand scheme of fraudulent behavior. There is fraudulent behavior, but as such a scheme, it's possible, but I'm not persuaded. And even some Republicans are siding against Trump on this one. Yeah, this was the Pennsylvania one. So I want to just really quickly. This was the New York Times went through. I don't want to bore you with reading stuff the whole time, because I do want to show you more about Pennsylvania. Here you go. New York Times. Apparently, the Times called officials in every state. No evidence of voter fraud. Texas. There was only about 4 states in this article, but the New York Times is calling it. You can go through this article. The New York Times called officials in every state. No evidence of voter fraud. It's pretty lengthy. I don't want to go and reading this whole thing to you. See, top election officials across the country said in interviews and statements that the process had been remarkable success despite record turnout and the complications of a dangerous pandemic. So there's a Democrat, a Republican Secretary of State in Kansas. Kansas went well. So that's one of the very interesting things. There is no court cases for voter fraud protecting protecting voters in the states that Trump won. That's a notable mention. That if you look at the fact, Trump is challenging and making accusations in states where he lost. So if he lost by a thin margin or a larger margin, he's going to say that must have been fraud. But any state that he won in, they know how to run their business. Now, I'm not saying that Trump is trying to make the claim in every state of Democrats, but he's doing it in the swing states because he knows that's where you got to get the votes. But Georgia's going to do a hand recount. Georgia's not. I don't think Georgia's going to flip. It's too many thousands of votes to insinuate that there were tens of thousands of votes that were committed fraud, or even hundreds of thousands. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with all of this. Let's get back. I want to show you this video. It's me again. So if you're listening, please subscribe to us on the Existentialists on YouTube. It's very important, and engage with us in conversation. We like to leave a comment here and there. I invite people to come on. But I'm going to wrap this up with just a few videos. There's a claim of an individual from the U.S. Postal Service. This individual came on, and apparently he saw his supervisor and someone else talking about there were ballots that came in, but apparently while they came in at November 4th after the election, he overheard the supervisor say, mark it for November 3rd. So change the postmark date. And that is shown that was fraudulent. He overheard it. He didn't see it, but he claims he overheard it. And I have a little video for us today. And where are you?
My name is Richard Hopkins. I am the postal employee who came out and whistle blew on the Erie, PA Postal Service postal office. I am right at this very moment looking at an article written by Washington Post. It says that I fabricated the allegations of ballot tampering. I'm here to say that I did not recant my statements. That did not happen. That is not what happened. And you will find out tomorrow. And I would like that the Washington Post recant their wonderful little article that they decided to throw out there out of random.
The postal inspector contacted you today in Pennsylvania?
Yes.
What did they say to you?
They asked me the same questions you asked me yesterday about what I'd seen and what I'd heard. And we're asking if I had any more information or whatnot.
You witnessed your supervisor backdating a ballot to November 3rd?
I did not witness them backdating it. I witnessed them talking about backdating.
What did you hear them say?
They were talking about how the day before, which was the 4th, they had post-dated all but one of the ballots that were picked up as the 3rd, but they had one that they made a mistake and postmarked it the 4th.
You heard Robert Weisenbacher say this to Daryl, or Daryl say it? How did you hear it?
Robert was saying it to Daryl.
Robert was saying it to Daryl.
They had postmarked one of the ballots for the 4th instead of the 3rd, because they were supposed to put them for the 3rd.
And so let me make good on that promise right away. Okay, this storm is getting crazy, right? And it's out of a lot of people's control. And so the reason they called me in is to try to harness that storm, try to reel it back in before it gets really crazy. Okay, I understand. Because we have senators involved, we have the Department of Justice involved, we have
Trump's lawyers team's gotten a hold of me.
I'm not. Well, I am actually. I am trying to twist you a little bit, because in that, believe it or not, your mind will kick in.
Okay.
We like to control our mind, and when we do that, we can convince ourselves of a memory. But when you're under a little bit of stress, which is what I'm doing to you purposely, your mind can be a little bit clearer. And we're going to do a different exercise too to make your mind a little bit clearer. Okay.
Good to go.
So, but this is all on purpose.
Roger.
I'm not scaring you, but I am scaring you here.
Okay, that was a lot. But the USPS worker, United States Postal Service worker, that you've seen in the video, he overhears his supervisor and another worker talk about changing the date. And so that, because of that very reason, there's an alleged broad voter fraud on all ballots that came in. So those number of ballots that came in after November 3rd, that altering of their date to make it seem like they came in November 3rd, it was so wide scale that it could have given Biden the state of Pennsylvania. It's just that the thing is, this United States Postal Service worker himself, he's not, his claim alone, there's no evidence to really back it up. They should investigate. Remember, if things are serious, voter fraud is serious, investigate it. The thing is, will it likely show that Biden won because of large margins of voter fraud? I don't think so. It's quite possible that won't happen. I'm leaning that way. Remember, I believe Trump was going to win. But this time around, it seems that Biden caught the flag. He's going to take the White House from Trump. And in it, you see Russell Strasser. He was the part of the office of the UPS Office of Inspector General. So So he was sent down to interview this individual about his claim. And apparently, in that first video, the Washington Post said that while the U.S. postal worker made a claim that he overheard that conversation about changing the dates, apparently after his interview with the Office of Inspector General, he changed his mind. He said that he didn't. And then he comes out and says Washington Post is lying. I never changed my mind. And then you hear the audio between him and Russell Strasser. Russell Strasser apparently exposed to be an anti-Trumper. So that's their evidence. Because it was an anti-Trumper investigating him and trying to scare him, that the U.S. postal worker changed his mind. But then he comes back and says, I didn't change my mind. I don't trust them. And you know what? I'm going to give it to you. Trusting bureaucracies for the American people is a hard thing. Trusting federal agents is a very hard thing. So that's why taking these allegations seriously should be done for the sake of our democracy. And here's my final thought on all the matter. Well, I don't think Trump is going to win back by any of these court claims. And I do think voter fraud should be taken serious, and the courts should play out if there's any evidence of these allegations being true. Take it seriously. Investigate. But my final thought is Trump is doing this to stir up his base. It's quite possible Trump will run again in 2024. And if Biden is vulnerable, he's going to get older by that point. 77 years old, Biden will be 81 by then. If that's the case, you're going to have a Kamala Harris, vice president, unless she steps down. I doubt it. She's probably going to run 2024 if Biden doesn't do it again. But Trump is stirring up his base because it delegitimizes a President Biden administration. And so just like the Democrats played this game of delegitimizing President Trump in their own way, Donald Trump is going to get his base to play the same game. So that's what all of this is all political theater. And it quite possibly may be a force to be reckoned with. The mobility of this messaging, of this propaganda, might be effective, and it scares me. The Democrats have to gain their place back with the working class. That's what this is. It's economic warfare. It always has been. And while racial justice is important, we must remember that racial justice is under the umbrella of economic justice. So the Democrats have 4 years to pick at Republican voters. Listen to Republican voters. Convince them that the next Donald Trump, even if it's not Donald Trump, but the next cult of personality, the next strongman, doesn't move Americans to a new authoritarian regime where the police state is emboldened and empowered, but instead challenged. The police state cannot continue to be such a powerful force that undermines American rights. So Donald Trump's theater play, it's brilliant, but it's dangerous for our democracy. So please share this video, comment, let me know what you think. Always, I love the idea of conversing with each other and moving forward for our country and our local communities. Remember, we cannot rely on just voting. We cannot rely on the presidency to make the better country we deserve. Organize locally. That's where you got to go, because that's where true power lies. Politics is mostly about activism. It's mostly about organizing. Now, with that being said, here is Tony B with Shy Society.
Wake up, wake up, wake up. Welcome to Shy Society. I wake up in the morning and the first thing that I see is a bunch of cranky people on a full bus with no seats, repeatedly undermining what's in common misery. Strangers remain blinded to existence and their history. What's the recipe? Well, taxes and a slave wage, harassment from the debt they face. Family happenings may take place, wait, negate the hate. The fan you'll never ever hurt. Brothers and sisters, not a damn thing from them you have learned. The pages turn, the future replicates the past. A building burns, fire revenge is pretty fast. War dance, it's a ritual in society. Live in shy land, this is what I describe to be. Childish, helpless, ignorant society. You will always be a part of me. Childish, helpless.